Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Garden Gossip, the Home and Garden Show, with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Welcome, everybody. It is March 3rd, 2022, and we are airing live from Anacortes, Washington. And today, we're going to go from Anacortes to Tulare County. In fact, this is part of our first Thursday Travel Tulare series with the Sequoia Tourism Council. And Tulare County is in Central California. It is home to the Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, Sequoia National Forest, and Sequoia Giant National Monument, and the Giant Sequoia National Monument, and also all these amazing communities that make up Tulare County, and that includes Woodlake, which is where we're going directly to Woodlake Botanical Garden. It includes Dinuba, Tulare, Visalia, Three Rivers, Porterville, all these amazing agricultural communities. That's what the whole Central California Valley is known for, growing just about everything. I think it's over 200-300 crops that are grown there, and there's also dairy, so a lot of cheese. And it's just beautiful, and spring is an awesome time to go and visit the region. So if you're going to go, I encourage you to go to the website discoverthesequoias.com. But we're going to talk about Woodlake Botanical Garden. This is a place that Nancy and I always say, if we're going to go to the Sequoias, of course we have to go to the parks and the forest, but this is a place we must go. It is an incredible garden with multiple gardens. There's a rose garden on one side, the Woodlake Rose Garden, and it's by a lake called Bravo Lake. But this botanical garden is something so special, and the rose garden too, because this is about a community getting together and just taking care of this land and planting crops. There's banana trees, even berries. There's roses. There's sunflowers, a little bit of everything. So we're very excited today to welcome back on the show. It's been a few years since they've been on the show. Manuel and Olga Jimenez, who created this garden, and they just simply rock. We got to see them last year in spring, and we wish we were actually in the garden with them today. But let's start with you. Manuel, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's good to have you
pleasure.
here. And welcome back, Olga. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much.
Hey, it is good to have you back on the show, too. And I remember the first thing when we got to see you both last year, and the garden was busy. And people were just flocking to the garden. It was April in 2021, and you gave us this huge bag of oranges.
That was so good. Yum.
What's going on in the oranges right now? I mean, do you have production? How's it been? Because I know it's been frosty across the country. How are the oranges doing, Olga?
Well, in California, we have been having wonderful weather. It has been spring, early spring for us. In fact, I think we've been in the 70s for over a month, maybe 2 months.
I'm so jealous.
And the only bad thing is that we haven't had enough rain. We need rain, and I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow, Friday.
Okay.
But we need like a good consecutive rain.
Yeah.
You need, because it's kind of real sparse.
Yeah, you need the steady kind of heavy drizzle for 2 to 3 days.
Or a week.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A whole week? Oh.
Yes.
We've had that up here in Washington State, and
so we should send it to you.
You need, we want to send a gift. Like, can you, push on down the road to our friends?
We'll send you the rain. That would send us the sun.
That would be great for us. As far as the citrus go, we have everything right now. I mean, everything. Pomelos, grapefruits, tangerines, navels, just anything you can imagine. We have it in abundance.
Do you see blood oranges? Like the blood oranges grow out in your area?
Yes, we have blood oranges also. I think we have over 82 varieties. So every tree is different.
That's amazing.
You can imagine. And you can taste all the fruit you want eat all the fruit you want. We just don't allow people to take bags of citrus out. This way we have enough citrus for everybody to sample.
Mm. Well, thank you for our bag that you gave us, because I knew you were selling them and actually raising funds too with that. And they were so delicious, and it's good road food, because we travel full time, and oranges are really good road food, but do not leave your peels out in nature. That is not a good thing. It's almost as bad as a cigarette butt. But just saying, they were delicious. And, speaking over 80 varieties, Manuel, how many crops do grow in the Central Valley Sequoia region? Is it 200-300?
Yes, it's well over 250 different commodities that we grow, and of course amongst them there's an immense variety. So when you talk about citrus, there are many different kinds of citrus. Like you might consider limes and lemons and grapefruit and oranges as separate things. But when we think about citrus, we think of all of them packaged together. And the same thing with vegetables. Almost everything you can imagine we grow in this county and the adjacent counties. So it's a really a diverse availability of all kinds of fruits and vegetables.
And that's an interesting thing about going to the garden. And we featured you in our latest issue of Quality of Life magazine. It's actually a new magazine for us, and it focuses on family and health and personal growth, and business. And we included you in a story about Tulare County being a place for people to take their kids on a farming adventure, basically. So kids know and can connect with their food. And why we put you in there was that the garden, Woodlake Botanical Garden, everyone, you can find it on Facebook. It's really good in regards to showing what you can grow. And I think it's a great place for kids, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, in fact, the kids, when they come, they get to work, often it's grunt work, like weeding or hoeing or just watering plants, but they get to work with just about everything. So when you think about the fruits, when you think of stone fruit, we have a collection of over 200 varieties of stone fruit. And that would include things like peaches, plums, nectarines, pluots, plumcots, apriums, cherries, and so on. So there's every tree in the garden is different. So it's not like it's an orchard, but it's a collection of some of the best varieties of each type of fruit that we could get for the gardens.
Right.
Oh, wow.
That's
and
so cool.
How many acres is it? Because I know when you come into Woodlake, you're on the right side, if you go into the parking lot, to the right is a massive rose garden, which was part of the botanical garden at one point. Now that is like a community rose garden with the Kiwanis Club and all different organizations taking care of all these roses that you initially planted, right? You and Olga and Woodlake Pride, right?
Yes,
initially did that.
In fact, we planted a larger rose garden in the west side. So we have the two rose gardens in the Woodlake Botanical Garden now. We have the Kiwanis Rose Garden, and we have the rose garden inside on the east side.
Awesome.
So there's together we have probably, I'm guessing, about 250 varieties of roses.
Wow.
On the west side, there's probably 123. On the east side where we were at, we've planted another 130 varieties of roses.
Wow.
So if people want to smell roses and see the beauty, this is the place to come.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It is beautiful going there. I mean, and what about year round? Is this something, does the garden close? I remember at one point it was May through October or September, October, but it seems that you're open year round these days.
Yes. Historically, we have been open year round, except that now, and it just seems one thing that's real important for us is that people don't realize that the garden area is an island. And that island contains certain species of wildlife, many different species of birds. We have raccoons, possums, red fox, kid fox, all those animals that occur in other areas, they're in the gardens. And so what we allow is we leave them alone for 4 days to have whatever they want, because they eat a lot of fruit. And then the public gets to be in the gardens for 3 days.
Yeah.
And it allows us also, with our equipment to be able to, because it's a 1 mile long garden, and we have to drive on it, and we don't like to really drive too much when the public is there. and so it leaves the wildlife to have their freedom while it's closed. And of course, they mostly come out in the evenings and the mornings. But it's a unique place, and since we don't use pesticides, we have, for example, every single pest that you could imagine, but we also have a corresponding collection of beneficial insects that control those pests. And so not using pesticides has allowed this island of property to have all this habitat and also species that are not going to occur in agriculture in the probably in the state.
Yeah, wow. It does. I think some home gardeners often don't realize that when they use a pesticide, they're killing the good insects. I'm not going to call them pests because they're good insects, as well as the ones that they don't want. So when you use a pesticide, you're killing a whole lot more than what you think, and it's not all that healthy for people.
Absolutely right. If people just have patience, people ask us about, a certain pest and say, well, that pest is there, but if you're just patient, there are other beneficial insects or other things that control it. So just be patient, and it'll those things will respond. That's nature.
Yeah, and that's true. We saw in our own garden in the 29 Palms, when we first started, it was really hard because we're gardening in the desert, which people said you can't do, but you can. It just takes a little patience and some creativity, and you really just have to wait, see what happens, and then find a natural solution to what's happening. And sometimes you just have to realize you grow 3 times what you need, so nature can have some, somebody else can have some, and you can have some.
I have to say this because, Manuel, as soon as you started talking about the birds and the wildlife, I have to tell you what's happening. So we've just had this rain, and today is the first day of some really good sunshine over the last few days here in Anacortes, Washington. As soon as you mentioned the birds and the wildlife, this entire flock of black starlings flew into the backyard where we are, and they're hanging out here. They're you have them in the front yard, Nancy? I'm by the backyard.
Yeah, they're in this tree right out here.
We're just totally flocked in by starling birds.
They're like listening.
What did you do, Manuel? What did you do? Do you have a special call? I feel like
no, it's really funny.
Birds.
Olga and I have had to adapt to the birds. For example, there are certain species of birds that love to eat the buds of stone fruit, and especially plums and apricots. And so we allow them to feed. We don't prune the trees until after they start blooming, because if we prune early, they take all the buds out. So we work with the birds. We let them feed, and after it starts blooming, they don't eat it anymore. They eat them when the buds are swelling. And so we let them feed, and now we come back in, and they don't feed on the peaches, for example, but they do feed on the plums and all the related species of trees. So it's a very interesting. We have to adapt to all those things, and we're learning as we go.
Oh, so you guys are watching then and seeing how nature. You're working in tandem, so a lot of observation has to happen for this to work.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, nice. I read somewhere that when birds come in, especially in a flock, which they normally do, that when they go to eat fruit and other things, they look for what one would call the weakest plant. So it's something that's going to die anyway. And because the energy or the flavor of the plant is condensed and more flavorful and stronger as the plant recedes, is the kind of the word they use. And so the birds know because they can smell it. And so what they're doing is actually doing a natural pruning that you would have had to do if they didn't do it for you. About that.
And what's interesting is that these birds have preferences. They like some varieties over others. Whether it's cherries or mulberries or plums or peaches, they feed on the varieties that they like best.
Well, they're like people.
I was thinking maybe Olga could.
Another interesting thing is that we have gone out there and planted sunflowers, and they're really beautiful. And then you go about 2 days later, you're wiped out. And we go, what happened?
Goldfinches.
What happened here? Well, the birds, they like the tender little shoots coming up, and then we have to figure out, okay, we have to wait now till they go find some other food source, and then we can come back and plant our sunflowers.
Yeah.
Wow. So you wait, Olga, for them to rotate around.
Yes.
Huh.
Yes, and then they go hide in the Himalayan berries, the wild Himalayan berries, and they come out, and then they go back. They have an eating schedule.
Yeah.
They're not they're not like us humans.
Yeah, not.
And so we kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah,
we kind of keep an eye on when they're coming out to eat and what is their favorite, and we don't plant that again.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So I want to get into the history of the garden, but I want to start with the two of you and your history of knowing how to work with the land and grow. Olga, tell us a little bit about your history. And because from when we were there at the gardens, the times we've been there, it's just, you seem to be this magical flower power lady who knows the flowers. Like Olga's got her own flower bed. It's really, you've got to go and see what I'm talking about. But it's just magical, and I love what you're doing with the kids. I want to get into Woodlake Pride, but Olga, tell us a little bit about your background. Is this something you've always been doing?
Well, growing up with a huge family and being farm workers, our hands were always in the dirt. If we were harvesting grapes, olives, oranges, or whatever, because California is so rich. So we migrated to the different areas and so that lifestyle of working and, not having a motel to stay in and just making the best of what you had. And I tell Manuel, I don't remember having a pillow when I was a kid. I just had the clothes on my back when we used to travel. So we're not really like, I have to have this and I have to have that. No, we can do without. We were raised that way. And I tell Manuel, I said, the first time I knew about birthdays was when I was married, and he made me a cake. I go, what's that about? I never had a birthday cake.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't miss it. You know that saying, when you don't know, you don't miss it?
Yeah.
Well, that's the way we grew up. And so you learn and you accept the new things, and it's very hard for me to accept a gift because I'm more of a giving person than accepting. And the thing with the vegetables and the flowers, they're so giving. They give so much beauty. Right now we have stalk everywhere. Stalk has a fragrance, and we have every color you can imagine.
Oh,
and
awesome.
That's such happiness. Brings such happiness. And the fragrance, you can pass by, and you can just pick up the fragrance.
Yeah.
And so far, there hasn't been a bug that likes it. So we're doing
cool.
good there.
Yeah, so you went from farm to farm or ranch to ranch as things were ready to be picked and worked. Yeah, it's and we've had we're very similar that way. I think Nancy and I we really don't care about stuff. Obviously, we don't have anything. I mean, we do. That sounds terrible, but we give it away. I mean, it's just we don't seem to care. It's always about music, books, and plants, right? And animals.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what it's all about. And so I remember, when last time we saw you, we were talking about you want a little teardrop so you can go, we can hook you up at the back of the car.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Come travel.
I'm still hunting for a teardrop. Whoa. I'm still on the lookout for one.
You got a spare teardrop, take it to Woodlake Botanical Garden and give it to Olga. But this is really important history, and I know Manuel too. In Woodlake and following on Facebook, you've done a lot of stories about your lifestyle and growing up, and also working, in farming, and I think it's very important that we understand this history of what California and who has been farming California for so long. I think it gets lost, and as things become more modernized in agriculture, those stories can go away if we don't tell them. So I really appreciate what you do, just both of you, what you're doing in the garden, because I think so many people flock to you. I mean, when we were there, it was hard to get a word in with you because so many people are asking you questions and how to grow this. I've moved to the area, which is great. You're sharing something so important. One is how to grow food and flowers and have that beautiful bounty, but there's that history too. So, Manuel, do you want to tell us a little bit about your start in getting your hands in the dirt? That's really what it's about, right?
Yes. Well, just like Olga, my family, we both come from really large families. But yes, working in agriculture, and my dad, when I was a kid, he used to plant gardens, and probably from the age of 10 to now, I probably had a garden almost continuously. So for about 60 years, I've been planting something.
Yeah.
And of course, during my, when I eventually got a career, it was with the University of California as a farm advisor, and I did research on vegetables and berries and tropicals. And so, I get to do the things that I really loved. And so I got to plant almost every vegetable that exists in the world as a farm advisor to look at, to see the possibility of growing them in California. And so, from that, the things that I learned when I was 10 and 11 years old, they came useful as I, inherited a job that was real important to another fella, and I just kept doing more and more work with plants. And so, I went from working with something I really loved doing, which was working with plants and teaching people, and then with the gardens, which evolved sort of together, because the gardens, we've been doing them for a long, long time. And so, combine the knowledge that I've learned from working with the plants and the young people have all evolved to what we have today at the Woodlake Botanical Garden.
It's amazing, and you get to work together.
Yeah, it's been a continuum.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I love that you're doing it together. Can you tell us a little bit about Woodlake Pride? Because you talk a lot about there's signs in the garden and about you're growing. You're not just growing plants there. You're growing people too.
Yes. Well, Olga and I, we have a long, long history. In 1971, we started with some of our very first projects, and it started off just beautification projects in town. And so, if it was removing graffiti or painting a mural, we just did all those things. And when I eventually, and we worked with kids back then too, growing flowers. And then what happened is I volunteered to do some work with the Hmong families who had immigrated to the United States to teach them how to grow in our system. So I worked with them for about 8 to 10 years. And Olga said, we used to grow vegetables in Woodlake. Can't we do that again? And so she's the one that drew me back, to doing the gardens here in Woodlake. And so, Olga's pretty much the one responsible for us, starting up again, because even though I was working with different people, eventually what happened is that we started working with kids in Woodlake. And the age of the kids years ago was much younger than the kids that work with us today. I would say they were from 8 years old to 14 years old for the first 8 years, very young kids. And then eventually the school came up with a community service requirement for the high school kids. And so now, it's mostly high school kids that we work with, but we have fewer young kids. But, I think overall it's been a good experience for all those kids. We are now working with some high school kids whose parents worked with us in the gardens many years ago, which is kind of interesting.
Wow.
So,
wow.
The gardens, the reason for doing the gardens was kids, because we just felt that kids in today's world, and I'm talking, 20, 30 years back, that they didn't have the experience that we had, getting your hands dirty, learning about things. It's not so much a science, but it's an art to learn to grow things. And when the kids do that, when they plant a seed and they see it germinate and they see it come to fruition, it's something exciting for them.
Yeah.
The only problem we ever ran into was when we were growing, we were planting, we planted a garden one time that had over 1,500 varieties of flowers and vegetables. And the kids came to us one day and they were planning to do a strike on us. They said, if we continue to give them vegetables that they have to take home, that they were not going to come back because their parents are forcing them to eat these exotic vegetables, and they didn't like it.
Oh, no, that's funny. Wow.
So then we started growing more watermelon and cantaloupes, the kinds of things that they like, right? But they didn't want the cauliflower and the broccolis and the pak choy and the gailan and all those other things that we're giving them. They'd take big old bags full home, and then the parents are fixing it for them, and they expected the kids to eat it. And they told us, if we have to eat the vegetables, we're not going to return.
That's so funny.
Oh my gosh! But there's a technique, because it's vegetables are really usually overcooked.
Yes.
It's very hard. It's not really hard. It's that we try to do too much. And I mean, I think I'm not a huge vegetable fan. I really am not.
But you eat a lot of salad. You'll eat them fresh.
Yeah,
I'll eat them fresh
or raw. Mm-hmm. But or slightly cooked. I have. It's rare that I like vegetables in a restaurant. I have to say.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's got to be almost off the vine kind of thing.
Yes.
Freshly picked, on the plate, lightly seasoned, and leave it. Do so much.
You know, growing up, my mother used to overcook all the vegetables and stews and things like that. I hated vegetables.
Yeah.
And when I started eating Chinese food, I realized that, hey, they're not bad. They're actually pretty good. Yeah. And, of course, Olga loves vegetables. So, you know, she's taught me a lot about eating vegetables. So, you know, I eat a lot more than I used to.
Ooh, Olga, give us some tips on vegetable cookery on how to get, because I'm I'm the daughter, and I'm trying to get my mother to eat vegetables.
Well, you know, with the influence that we have with the Asian people, there are so many sauces out in the market that you can buy for your vegetables. The one I like the most is the oyster sauce. It's kind of like an imitation, but it's delicious for any greens you have. Olive oil to begin with, and then just saute your vegetables and put in some oyster sauce. I love it. It's just, and even the black bean sauce on any vegetable.
I'm with you on that. I do that. I'll make beans and then just put salad on the side, and you'll have a little bit of vinaigrette, but I let the bean juice and the vinaigrette go together and put it on the vegetables. And just there's something about black beans. You're right, because it's almost like a nuttiness. It's hearty and it's delicious. But it's interesting about the Hmong people in Tulare County. We went to the Tulare County Museum in Visalia in Mooney Grove Park, and they did a huge exhibit about all the different cultures who have come to Tulare County in different ways, right? And there was the Dust Bowl too, right, that brought people across. But I did not realize how international Tulare County is. How many different hands are growing the fruit and the vegetables and the nuts and everything. I mean, it was pretty amazing, and I think it's special, and it's special that they're recognizing that and letting people know, because it's as we look at the world fighting with each other, I think one thing we can all agree on is let's grow some flowers and have some peace.
Yeah.
and some food that's healthy for each other, but it's amazing, and I think it's especially important for the Hmong people because they literally lost their home country. They do not have their home. So their home is Tulare County.
We learn from them, and they learn from us. And being out at the garden, I'm always curious, and I'll ask, how do you fix this your way, and how do you fix this? Like we have somebody from, we get a lot of people from around the whole country, from Texas, from San Diego, from San Francisco, from New York. And so I always like to converse and ask questions. I'm always curious, and they'll tell me, how they fix the cabbage. This one fella we know, he's doing sauerkraut. And he told me, because we had a lot of cabbage, and I kept giving them, here, take some cabbage. And he said, I'm going to fix some sauerkraut. And then I go, how do you do that? And he said, My father used to do that. So he says, I want to carry that on and not forget. So he says, when it's ready, I'm going to bring you some. And I'm going, okay, but I mostly like it. Anything I don't like.
Anything pickled is good. Listen, it's good for your body. It's just yummy. Sauerkraut fresh. I mean, homemade sauerkraut is a treat.
It's really good.
And that is true about the people at the gardens when we were there that day. It's every time we go to Tulare County, we have to go to the gardens. It's just so special, and it's very accessible if you're in a wheelchair or pushing a little baby in a stroller. It's it's easy to get around, and it's just really pretty. So I really encourage people to go there. But people from all over were there, and I think a lot of people are moving to Tulare County as well. Getting out of the huge cities and the Sequoias. Who doesn't want to live next to Sequoia National Park? I do. It's pretty. It's a beautiful place.
Yes.
Manuel, I do want to go to the fruit that you're growing there, because you had all kinds of varieties of blueberries and, everything. But you have banana trees, and this is it. I still like, how are you having banana trees? I mean, I didn't expect you guys to have tropical fruit in the Central Valley, in Florida, yes.
Yes. Well, because I did work for the University of California, I looked at the possibility of growing tropicals in our county, and so I studied. I looked at bananas and found that the dwarf bananas, even though they freeze in the winter, they actually will flower in the summer and set up a banana bunches and will ripen in the fall. So we can get bananas even though it freezes here. And the same thing goes for, papayas. We have we have many Asian people who come to actually purchase our papayas green. I don't know if you ever had papaya salad in a Thai restaurant.
Yes.
But, our papaya trees are just magnificent and beautiful. They set, one tree will have more than 50 large fruit. And so we grow them outside, and in the fall, when it gets to be like early November before the first frost, the Asians will come, and some of them will buy in quantities to distribute to their friends who have restaurants, because these papayas, of course, are fresh. They're not irradiated. They're sweeter. They're more crunchy, and they're better tasting because they're grown locally. But, it's a real popular, the people are just waiting for the day when we're going to harvest the papayas. So we grow the papayas outside, and then we grow papayas inside our hoop house that don't freeze because they're covered year-round. Okay. And those, we found that, I never liked papaya that I bought in the store. Even when I went to Mexico, I tried papaya, and it was always not really sweet, but a little bit mealy. The papayas that I grew at the Carniac Center, and now we grow at Woodlake in the hoop house, they taste like candy when they ripen. It's amazing. So, papayas can be sweet.
They can,
but we grow other things. We grow.
South Africa, in everyone's house had a papaya tree at the, and we call them pawpaws. But pawpaws, like P-A-W, they'd say, but it's papaya. Pawpaws. And everybody had them, and it was like you just go out and an avocado tree. We were very spoiled. And to me, this is the thing is avocados,
Oh my gosh.
And banana trees. Everyone had banana trees, and all different kinds. Like they do like purpley blue flowers and all kinds of different things. But I want to go back to the bananas because, and the pawpaws over there, or the papaya was sweet. I know exactly what you're talking about. And then if you bought them from a store, it was always. I've never enjoyed papaya in this country, not once, because it's mealy.
No.
It doesn't. It's just the
not
texture.
Right.
Is weird, and I'm weird about tomatoes unless they're right off the vine, and there's just I don't like the mealy. But the banana trees, we were in, as we travel across the country, many of you know we work with trusted house sitters. We don't work, but we are on that platform as pet sitters because when COVID hit, we needed to be isolated from people, and so we started pet sitting, and it turned out to be the coolest thing. And there's no money exchanged or anything like that. People want to travel. We get to take care of their home, their garden, and their pets. So I want to tell you both, we have been doing gardens across the country, and it has been such a unique, different experience.
Fun.
It's not like being in Southern California or the desert in Arizona like we're used to. So it's you have to berries will come out at different times. It's like in the back east, they'll have berries in late summer, and I'm like, what do you mean? Normally it's in February, March. So everyone's different. But when we were in Peachtree City, which is just south of Atlanta, they have a bunch of banana trees where we were. And I was telling our friends there, I said, there was like this weird sound at night. Like, I know there was storms and everything and getting frosty and everything. And he said, the banana trees explode at night when it gets that frosty and cold. They literally, because they have all this moisture, and then they snap and boom. And so he was talking about this difference of whether he pruned them down or not to get them to get fruit. Do you know anything about like pruning banana trees because of the cold? It's interesting, but they exploded when we were there. If you had an exploding banana tree,
it doesn't get that cold.
Yeah,
okay. It doesn't get that cold in Woodlake. But every year our trees, the foliage on the banana trees does freeze. So right now, if you look at our banana trees, they're brown. All the leaves are brown.
Yeah.
But what we do is we trim them. So every tree that is gone through flowering and it said bananas, we cut those down because the following year it'll collapse and die on the fourth year. So in the third year, that's when they set bananas. So every year after it freezes, like right now when we see there's no possibility that it's going to freeze in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll go through and remove all the dead leaves, and then it'll start sending new leaves from the center of the trunk, and that's where all the leaves come out and the next flower.
Wow.
Okay. Wow.
So when we lived in Kenya, I just have to say that to me is the Garden of Eden. You can put anything in the ground and it will grow. It's the most amazing thing. It's right on the equator, and we just grew everything, like the vegetables and the fruits, and the garden it just took care of itself. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So that's what's so amazing to me.
The birds like to.
Go ahead.
The birds like to drop seeds everywhere too, so that's a big help.
Yeah,
you get a surprise. You go, I didn't plant that.
I know. It's cool. You're like, I don't know what that is. Look it up in the book on the internet. And you're like, okay, I want it.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you experience invasive species that you have to look at in the garden? Like, I know there's weeding, but then some weeds are okay. Like, people consider dandelions weeds. I think they're good for us, So what happens with that in the garden?
Yeah, the three main weeds that concern us would be Johnson grass, Bermuda grass. Actually, there's 4. Nut grass and field bindweed. If field bindweed isn't around like roses, they tend to grow underneath the canopy of the roses and climb the roses. And it's hard, the chemicals that you would use, we don't use chemicals in the garden to begin with, but the chemicals you would use to control it would damage the roses.
Yeah.
And so those, that field bindweed, we have it at the garden. We have limited areas where we have nutgrass, and nutgrass, is a tough one to control also. There's been work done where they say if you pull a nutgrass plant out, it releases the certain hormones, and you now have 10 plants instead of 1.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Because plants defend themselves.
But those are the weeds that we are concerned about. But we actually, before we planted, we take these areas and we grow them out, and then what we do is we in the very beginning, before we start planting things, we find out if there are bad weeds, and then we spend a whole summer controlling those weeds. So what we do is we get them healthy first, because you can't kill plants that are stressed or not healthy. We grow with the weeds, we get them healthy, we irrigate them, and then as they get really healthy, then we spray the chemicals on them, systemic herbicides, and then keep watering. And what comes again is the next flush of growth. Then we try to knock that down. We do it like 3 or 4 times over a 5-month period. And that usually diminishes the population of that particular weed. But you can't plant a garden and expect to control those hard-to-control weeds amongst the vegetables or the plants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge at the garden. because I'll get some lady that will come, and she's from Honduras or somewhere, and she says, "Can I have some banana leaves? I'm making pupusas. I'm making tamales." And I go, "Oh, okay." You know, I didn't know that they could use that, you know, that way. And then I get somebody from Serbia, and she wants some leaves from the grapes. And she makes her own, their own traditional, using grape leaves. And then, like,
wow. That's
and then,
cool.
you know, you just get, and then somebody from India will say, "Can I have the mustard greens?" And I'm going, "Sure."
Actually,
you know,
the wild mustard.
The wild, you know. So, and then somebody else from Mexico will say, "Oh, can I have those weeds, the calites?" And I go, "Sure." So, you know, because we're so diverse, it just catches my attention. What you think is a weed is not a weed to them.
Yes.
Even the dandelions they
to
want.
me are not a weed. Dandelions are good for your body. They're good for the ground. They're good for bird. I mean, and they're pretty. And people kill them. And I'm like, don't just. Wouldn't you want dandelions as a lawn more than just the green? I'm just saying, the clover and the dandelions. You know, they're pretty. Do you get sweet peas? I think I have photos of sweet peas from your garden. In the spring. Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Every year I bug Manuel. I bug Manuel every year. I want my sweet peas up.
Yeah,
I remember we
beautiful.
That little
and her
creek.
snow peas.
The snow peas. And the peas. It's by the creek. The one little water area that you have.
Peas.
The peas, but aren't they really good for the soil? The sweet peas, aren't they kind of like a? They're legumes.
They have nitrogen that they put into the soil.
And aren't they good?
Like their beautiful. I like the beautiful pastel flowers on them. You know. And so when I be weeding, or Manuel says, "I need this area cleaned up," I'll tell him, no. So-and-so lady's coming for all those weeds. And then he looks at me and he goes, "Olga, if you wait for everybody to come get weeds, we'll never clean this place." I go, no, she says she'll be coming.
So this is how you weed. You get everybody to come and get food.
Get what you like. Yeah.
I love that.
It's a big help. Yes, it's a big help, let me tell you.
That's cool.
Don't be surprised if in summer you see ladies walking by with big clumps of malva, or big clumps of mustard weed, or big clumps of purslane.
Or
everything that comes up. Somebody likes it.
For some purpose, medicine or food or whatever. There's you know, all cultures have their own favorite remedies.
Right, but the malva is like for use for tea. I've had malva tea, like that the malva. It's like a tea because it's kind of like hibiscus tea in a way, but it has almost like a marshmallowy taste. If I'm getting the right plant. Who knows what I drink? You know, like it's anything to do with. I didn't mean it that way. But the teas are really neat. But it's like people use the root, like it's a malva root, and I believe it's connected to mallow, so that's where you get that little marshmallowy taste. Now, I think it was you, Manuel, that taught me that you've got this huge flower. It's like a giant hibiscus flower, and I think you said that it was related, and maybe it's not a hibiscus, but it's this huge, huge flower that looks like a hibiscus, and red and pink ones, I think, but there was a really big one. You said it was related to the cotton plant.
Yes, cotton is a hibiscus.
Oh, really?
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're right. There are different species of hibiscus, and the flowers are gigantic. Sometimes, most of the time, they'll be about 6 inches in diameter, but sometimes they'll be as large as 8 inches in diameter. They're beautiful.
Wow.
And once they start blooming, they like the heat, so they'll start blooming in early summer, and will bloom all through summer.
Wow. Oh, cool. Man, because it's beautiful. Everywhere we go, when people have there's people with gardens at their bed and breakfast, and we'll do all a travel thing. I'll be like, "That's cotton, Manuel said so," and then I'm like, I hope I'm right, because I'm telling people this everywhere we go about that. But I'm glad to hear it. Now, what about the lady? Is it a Lady Sharon rose? Is that the same thing as a hibiscus?
That's the same thing.
Is it connected?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
The Athenias are hibiscus.
Okay, then. Okay, that's cool.
The Rose of Sharon, and then the related species. Yes.
Oh, how cool!
It's just like blackberries and raspberries are from the rose family.
Oh,
that's right. The blackberries, because rose hips, like all of that's kind of. So it's the leaves. That's what you're saying, Olga. Look at the leaves of the. So you have to look at the leaves more than the flower.
If you really concentrate and look at the leaf and the shape, and you can say, hey, is this related to that? Because the leaf looks similar.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense with the flowers too. Like for like the berries and because they do, like if you see, we see a lot of roses in the wild and azaleas in the wild when we hike and do some of the parks. And that's what's interesting too, is to go from the parks to what people have growing in their homes, how plants have been adapted to be able to be in, the human world versus the wild world, like berries and things. Here, berries are growing everywhere. So I know you guys are famous for your berry events and berries, and blueberries. That's a big deal too. So do you have your events coming up this year, your berry festivals?
Yes, tentatively it's scheduled as usual for the last Saturday in May, but they can always look at our Facebook page. And yes, I don't want to brag too much, but we have the best tasting blueberries and blackberries in the world. And I say that because I got to go to the stations in Canada, in Oregon, in Georgia, and Florida. And, of course, in those areas, they have the huge collections of just about everything you can imagine. So I brought some varieties, not commercial because, they're not the most productive, but we have the best tasting berries in the world.
There you go.
And so when people come on that weekend, they get to taste the best. And not only that, we bring in berries from around the state. We have the local strawberries and blackberries and so on. And then we bring in berries from other parts of the state. And so people get to taste a real diversity of strawberries because we have a collection of strawberry varieties, a collection of blackberry varieties, raspberry varieties. Oh, man, it's just delicious. My mouth is watering right now, by the way.
I know.
Thinking about it.
Like,
I want some berries.
Yes. Yes.
I'm ready for berries. You know what?
Yes.
They're so good for us too, right? So berries. That's it. Any other events coming up that we can tell people about?
Yes, we probably are going to have. I know we're planning that. Probably sometime early summer we're going to have a vegetable day because we grow a lot of different vegetables. And
just
so
for Nancy.
We want to bring people in.
Yes.
Pardon?
I said you're going to do that just for Nancy, so she'll eat her vegetables.
That's right.
Oh yes, yes, yeah. So right now, what happens in the gardens? People are allowed to taste. Like for example, right now they go to the citrus. They can any of the 80 varieties we have there. When we have the stone fruit, the same thing. But when it comes to vegetables, we want it to be aesthetically beautiful. We want the blocks to remain pristine so that people can see the garden. So, for example, you see a cabbage patch, you should see all the cabbages in the patch. It's beautiful. And then we have a day when we allow the volunteers to take some, and then what we have left over, then we either give it away or we sell a little bit. But the vegetable gardens, we wanted them to be absolutely beautiful and pristine. Otherwise, people start cutting the vegetables when they're growing, that it doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
And so the trees are different, but the vegetables, we try to keep the rein on that and say, hey, please look at the vegetables. On a certain day, we're going to harvest, and if you're around, you can have some.
Yeah.
But
yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Suddenly I want to eat carrots. I want to go in and I want to, there's something about just, the plants underground. It's cool to see the cabbage, the lettuce, and, things growing, like chard is so beautiful, right? And tomatoes, which is a fruit. So, it's still a vegetable in a weird way, but seeing all of that. But when it comes down to pulling vegetables from underground out, it's always this cool surprise. I think that's cool for kids too, to see the potatoes and the carrots and beets. Yeah, and then opening them up and seeing, wow, who would know that all of this would grow in the dirt?
What I like the most when you pull something from the ground, smell it.
Yeah.
Smell it. It has an earthy smell to it, and that takes me back when I was a kid. Just smelling anything that comes off the ground, the potato, the onion, the carrot, the radishes, everything that you pull up, just sniff it, and it's a wonderful smell.
Yes, what's amazing is that there are, in the radishes, and I'm sure you're well aware of that, they come in all colors. So they're amazing in all sizes. You have from the really small things to basketball-size radishes, round ones. They're a Japanese specialty radish. Yes.
Wow. You know what? I just tried the other day.
Even daikon.
Ooh, you grow those? I was going to say you grow. I've never seen the basketball. When you were just saying the Asian variety, I just suddenly went. Can you grow dragon fruit? Tried dragon fruit for the first time the other day, and it's amazing. Can you grow that there?
We've been trying because a friend of mine in San Diego, that's his specialty. He works with dragon fruit. But we haven't been able to get the plants to grow, let alone grow sufficiently to set a flower. There are people locally who are trying, but nobody really successful. Not in our area. It's probably, it's too hot in the summer, believe it or not, and it's too cold in the winter. They get nipped in the winter, and then the hot weather kills the flower, dries the flower real fast.
Is that the exotic fruit guy that's off of? I just know the road. It's like he's near Fallbrook. He's between Fallbrook and Vista in that little area, and he's got an exotic fruit
the fellow
farm.
that works with him, his name is Faustino. Not Faustino. His name is. Anyway, Olga, what's his name?
It's a cool place, man.
Yes. Anyways,
there's an exotic fruit farm out there, and you go in there. It's like you're in the jungle. And it's like nothing you've ever experienced. It is cool. It's like guavas and lychees, and I mean, he's got passion fruit grows wild there. Like, it's so good. Can you do passion fruit?
It tends to freeze.
Yeah,
it's
that's
a big
right.
old vine.
Once
it goes out of the,
Yeah.
But look at how much.
But we have guavas and lychees.
Oh, you have lychees and guavas, really? Wow. Wow.
We have 8 varieties of guava.
Kumquats too, because of it's citrus. Kumquats, or are they
we have
too
kumquats,
small?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. No, we have kumquats.
That little rose apple. Rose apple, is that what it's called? That little tiny
Jamaican
fruit?
rose apple, yes.
Yes.
Wow.
We have longan, Jamaican rose apple. We have a chirimoya, mangoes.
Oh man, and mangoes. Oh, see, that's dangerous. If I get in there, it's like dangerous. Now you've got a whole row of fig trees too, and I didn't know there were so many fig varieties in my life until the last time we were there in Woodlake. I was like, what? I think you had a California fig, and then you had different figs. I just thought there was a fig tree, like boom.
No,
but no.
Yes.
I had no clue, no clue about that. But I want to go back to that because you do have different parts of the garden, and it's really grown from the very beginning. I think the first time we came out was in 2010, maybe even sooner, the first time. And it just seems like it's really grown with gazebos, and you've got that little farmhouse and water fountains. But before we went live, you said you have a Peter rabbit garden. Most people want to get rid of the rabbits in the garden. But Olga, what's the Peter Rabbit garden about? Carrots?
It's a storybook character. It's a storybook character, and so they've designed it with some figurines of the rabbit and friends of his, and and we're planting exotic vegetables there. So that it's different from the other gardens. And so there'll be eggplants that have the fruit really exposed so that people can see all the fruit on the plant versus covered with leaves. We'll have the bright light Swiss chard, which is, yellow, orange, red, pink. It comes in different colors. So, and then there'll be little tunnels for the kids will be able to walk through, and there'll be different colored tunnels. One will be blue, but one will be purple, one will be red, and so on. And that'll be with morning glories. So, the little kids will like it. They like it a lot right now, and I think they'll like it even more early summer when it's in full bloom.
There's a sign that says "Hop this way," and we placed some like pavers, but they're made out of wood, and I see the little children hopping on one leg, and going through the trail, and then I see an adult, and they say, well, you know what, I remember doing this as a kid, and there they go. I go, wow. It brings back memories to adults.
Yeah. Well, as adults have to, being in a garden, I think brings the inner child out. I mean, just the other day, I'm, taking care of this beautiful dog, Iris, a wonderful golden lab, and she wants to play out in the garden, and apparently she likes to hang out in the daffodils, and apparently we're going to run in the mud and splash in puddles. And so here I am, almost 50 years old, being like a kid with a dog in the puddles, and there's nothing better in the world than that. You know what I mean? And I think that's the joy you get about gardening is once you get your hands in the dirt or your feet on the dirt, you might as well go all in.
Oh, yeah. Go all the way. Just go all the way.
Exactly. So hop away. Hop on the, I think that's awesome for adults to do. And for kids, how many volunteers do you have?
Would you repeat that?
On the weekends, how many volunteers do we have?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
On the weekends, we're getting as many as 12 on Saturdays. And we're like,
we had 20
I think I'm going to...
Yeah.
I think I'm going to stay home and do laundry and do dishes, and Manuel will call me and he'll say, you better get over here. I've got too many kids for just me to handle. So I have to drop what I'm doing and then run over there.
We like to keep the number around 10 because it's manageable. We can, because I can think on maybe 3 little projects and divide the kids and they can work on 3 things. But sometimes we'll get, like last Saturday, we had to come out because we had 20 volunteers. Adults and kids. But one time, the one time I'll never forget is that we got 70 volunteers. So they came from Woodlake, they came from the surrounding communities, from Visalia, from Farmersville, groups of kids and adults that wanted to work in the gardens. And we didn't have enough tools, We don't have tools for 70 people.
I think it was Earth Day.
Or something like that. Yeah, they just all happened to come to the garden.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's amazing. But, hello, everybody who has tools. You know where to take them. Woodlake Botanical Garden. You can always use tools and water. And, what kind of donations, what can people do to help you with the garden?
Mostly, what we like is small groups of volunteers. Because like that, Olga and I, we're there 6 days a week. We're there Monday through Saturday, and we at least till noon. And of course, right now we've been working full days. But volunteers can come anytime that we're there, and we always tell them, when you come, there's not in the past we've had, for example, people that adopt an area. But then that person adopts it, and it becomes difficult to make sure that if we don't know they're not coming and the weeds are getting big, so we do it communally as a group. All the things that we do out there, we do it together as a group, so we can prioritize and take care of the areas that need attention. But people are welcome to bring their own tools, and they can help us in many ways. They don't have to be a gardener to help us. We have events where they can help us. We also have computer work that they can do, like making posters and making signs and stuff like that. So there's many things they can work on. Some kids have done artwork for us. They've made just some real nice garden signs for us. So if somebody has a talent, we prefer for them to use their talent on whatever whatever they like to do and are good at, versus giving them a rake and say, hey, come and rake these leaves over here. Because there's a lot of opportunities, regardless of what the person's skills are. We can use those skills. We've been using, like, for example, amateur welders and carpenters and things like that to do a lot of our projects. And so that's worked out really well.
Cool. That's awesome. I think it's awesome for everyone. And I think you're right about, unless somebody wants to learn a new skill, this is a great way to learn. It's a great way to grow. And I think, also, people that are in between careers, this is something, it's a good place to go and get your hands dirty, and do you find people that also maybe living in apartments want to get their hands dirty and miss gardening, people that may have downsized from their home want to go out and help and just miss being in a garden? Do you find a lot of people come to the garden for that?
There have been people like that, but not a lot of them. I would say that most people who come is because they like gardening already, and they may have a garden, but they want to come help at our garden.
Yeah,
so they're usually asking for trouble because they need to go back home and take care of their garden. For example, we have a lady who comes every week, and she works in the garden, and she neglects hers, and then we had to go help her on hers.
That's community, right? That's community spirit. I like that.
Yes.
So can people donate plants to you? Do you accept plants or financial donations to keep things running? Because I know there's a lot of labor, but there's also cost in running a garden. Not that you're buying pesticides or anything, but there is cost to making things work, like for fencing and stuff like that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Historically, we've always had just a couple of 2 or 3 little fundraisers a year. And so that has kept us going forward, just barely. But with our improvements, that has come about because, number one, the city has finally contributed some money to us, which is really good. They're partnering with us, which is
cool.
Really awesome. Good. And then also we have garden friends who have been donating some money so that we can do some of these projects, which is also very, very good. But we, finally we never have had a donation box, and we finally installed it last week. But we do accept donations. And so, if anybody wants address and stuff like that, at our Facebook page, everything is there.
Awesome.
But yes, mostly we want their time. That's what matters the most, because building a relationship with them, and especially their children, because the children, they once they buy into the garden, they bring the parents. And so we love for the kids to taste the fruit, to smell the aromas of the garden, the herbs, to see the beauty of the gardens. And they're the ones that tug at the parents and let's go to the garden, let's go to the garden. And that's what people tell us, that it's their children who keep encouraging them to bring them to the garden. So we want them to come to the garden.
I love it. I love it. It's been so much fun to have you back on the show. We could talk to you for hours. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this now. Look at each. I want to go play in the garden and play with sweet peas. Before you both go, now if someone brings a teardrop to you, so that you and Olga and the two of you can go off for a vacation, I want to ask each of you, where would you both want to go that does have something to do with nature or plants? Because I know that no matter where you go, you can still want to go see that. I know that. So, Olga, where do you want to go in the teardrop?
I actually want to visit all the national parks.
Well, come on, girl. Come with us.
Yeah, come on. Come with us.
Come with us. We'll get you in trouble because we go down stupid roads that we shouldn't. But you're welcome to come with us.
That's the fun part of it. You end up lost and you find something you didn't expect to find.
It's exactly the thing, right? Is there a specific national park you've had in your mind to go to?
Yosemite. I went to for the first time. And I live 3 hours away.
Oh,
so I've got the buzz.
Gotta go to Yellowstone.
Yellowstone
is our very first
Yellowstone
park.
is my target.
There's so much wildlife.
It's 150 years old from March 1st. It's 150 years old this year, which is amazing, And you guys are in national parkland. You have Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, Yosemite, Death Valley near you. So I know and Pinnacles National Park. So a lot of people do that loop, especially overseas guests. And hopefully we'll start to see our friends from other countries come back to the States again. Hopefully all of this COVID stuff will, escape us all and stop so we can get back to some normal fun, But Manuel, where do you want to go in the teardrop? Because you're driving,
Yes. Actually, Olga and I had been planning a road trip across the southern United States.
Oh,
and
cool.
Part of the thing was to stop at different places along the way. The plan was to get on the Amtrak and then get a rental, stop somewhere near where we could drive to the Grand Canyon. And then as we go eastward, stop at different places, the historical places and gardens and parks, going all the way to Florida. And then we would meet our kids in Florida for a couple of days, but just a couple, at Disney World. And then we would fly back to California. So it would be, we were hoping maybe like a month excursion eastward, but along the more southern part of the United States.
Cool.
And we were looking at all these different, there's so many places to stop.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is. It's dangerous. Nancy and I have been in the East for a long time. I mean, we've just now come back west. We were back west last year, just for a little bit to do the Sequoias, a little bit of Oregon, and Costa Mesa, California. And really, this is, now we're in the Pacific Northwest, and this is a whole other world. But we've spent so much time in Florida and Texas, New Mexico, North Carolina,
all
South
the way
Carolina,
across.
Georgia, you name it. So when you guys plan this, I mean, we've traveled across the country 4 times last year, and we're about to do that again this year, and it's fine with us in Louisiana. And when it comes to gardens and plants and knowing who you are and what you've done, please let us know, because you guys are going to be in our new Garden Gossip magazine. And we've been to gardens that are the big, magnificent ones, and then there's these ones that are just these community treasures. And I really want people to know about these community treasures and go to the big ones too, because they're all awesome. But a lot of times the community ones don't make the list of things, and I want them to go, because
Beautiful.
Same thing as what we do, how we travel now. And of course we do our tourism stuff, and we do hotels and bed and breakfast and everything. But when you're in neighborhoods and actually you see plants that you'll never see, you know what I mean? There's plants that just grow in certain places, that you're not going to see somewhere else. And people grow what they eat as well, like you were talking about, like the papaya and things like that. So these community parks are also done by volunteers majority of the time, and people who really care. And so it's when you do this, please let us know, because
you support them.
I will send you this really big, long list, and you'll finally realize you just have to be on the road like we are 100%.
Yes.
It's a dangerous thing, but it's such a good conversation with you both. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Woodlake Botanical Gardens, go to their Facebook page, and also we want to thank the Sequoia Tourism Council. Every first Thursday we talk about what you can see and do in the region, and we're going to close with a song called Freshly Squeezed, because it's orange juice season, and that citrus apparently grows really well in Tulare County. So we're going to play that. It's from Johnny Master and the Mama's Boys out of New Orleans. So here's a little blues for you all. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Here it is. Some blues.